G'day and welcome to another Round the Campfire chat. Today here with Geoff Wilson, who is, I'm lucky enough to live next to Geoff's parents. And Geoff, for those of you who don't know him, is the founder and owner of VetLove, which has 11 veterinary hospitals throughout southeast Queensland. Also is the owner of Fifth Element Expeditions, which takes people all over the world to a whole other level. And you'll understand what I mean by that once we start talking to Geoff. A whole other level of adventure. And also this year completed the longest ever solo journey by any human anywhere. Is that right?
Yeah, the longest solo unsupported polar journey.
Polar journey.
Yeah, I'm sure there's been something longer on sand, but no, probably even sand as well. But the longest solo journey at 5,306 kilometres.
Wow. Yeah. So very grateful, Geoff, to spend some time with you today. I guess I wanted the question in my mind is, you know, if you think about the adventure and what you do, is that something that you've always had? As a kid, were you like the kid who was running off into the...
Yeah, very definitely. ADD. I think now I look at these poor kids, you know, diagnosed as ADD, and that was me all over. Like I was,
so you were the one that Mum was yelling at, where are you?
Yeah, just up to no good, or just disappear into the forest for hours, or start a fire that I shouldn't have lit, or
right.
I wouldn't say naughty, just continual activity.
Yeah. Continual
activity.
And what is it about that? I don't know if you remember, what was it as a kid that you enjoyed about getting out into the bush and that adventure?
Yeah, I mean, we were fortunate. We didn't have TV or there were no devices back then. So it was really just keeping yourself amused and exploring, going further and further afield. And then by the age of 17, I started my first major expedition, which was cycling from London to Nairobi by bicycle across the Sahara. Probably at that point I would have been the youngest person to cross the Sahara on a bicycle, and that was kind of the first major expedition, you know, and a love for it. But then,
so this was at 17?
Yeah. So when I think about it now, look at my boys heading off on an adventure now at 19, and I'm stressed about it, and it's within Australia. And
what's he up to?
He's heading south to create a short climbing and surfing film, showcasing, you know, what can be done during the international sort of closure, what adventures are available in our land, and that's going to be super, you know. But he's the next level when it comes to the scenery and the vision that's coming out of it. I was just purely doing it. Now they've got this incredible ability to fund it through social media, and it's a new era for adventure. In fact, it's a great era for adventure. But yeah, back to that original question, the why. I think I've always adventured, and there was definitely a period where I knuckled down and we created a core business, and then had 3 kids and a happy marriage. Keeping all of that balance required more time. Yeah. But there was a pivot point in my life, which I'm very thankful for, and that was getting involved with the 2004-2005 relief effort up in Aceh post the tsunami.
Oh, really?
And so I worked up there with Medicine du Monde, the French medical firm, or aid group.
The not-for-profit.
Yeah, not-for-profit. And they were basically just getting me to translate from Indonesian to English.
Right.
And then they would treat whatever the wounds were. So for most of the time, I would take on the grief and the hardship, and then I'd pass just the necessary information on to the doctor. So over 1,000 interviews with people that had lost everything. And the profile of the survivor then was male between the age of about 19 and 24. And 90% of the children and the women were gone. So there was a real sadness and a grief, and not one person worried about stuff. It was all about friendship and relationship and family. So I came back from that, galvanized to make sure that we never lost sight of friendship and family, and also that the adventuring, which is part of my DNA, wasn't suppressed by society's need for zero risk, playing a straight bat, being safe. And I think to date I've certainly not played a straight bat at all. Trying to hit sixes, and the problem with trying to hit sixes
off the first ball.
Yeah, occasionally you get out for a duck.
So what I'm hearing is that had a profound impact, seeing those people after that tsunami.
Yeah, definitely.
And drove you into, I guess, a whole other level of.
Yeah, I mean, I came back after that and was certainly not myself. When we recognise it now, it would be classed as some sort of PTSD.
Yeah.
Sarah, my wife, was a very qualified counsellor and social worker, and she basically nurtured me along to a point where 3 months later I went back to find a guy called Hallidan, who I carried out with tetanus at the end of the expedition, and I was told he'd died, but I never believed he'd died, and he was kind of like the final chink in my armour. And she really felt, these crows are horrendous, sorry about that.
Oh, it's awesome.
He kind of got under my skin, and I really kind of weakened mentally from that point. And I think prior to that I'd had a really fairly harsh view of anyone with mental issues or softness, as I saw it back then. But it was a great turning point for me to have the humility to understand that everybody has a different limit.
Yes.
And I'd certainly found mine. And, finding Hallidan and understanding that he had survived, and then connecting our family and his family, I came back and we sold a lot of what we owned and bought a sailboat, and spent the next 18 months sailing back to Hallidan. So we sailed in after a really long, dangerous journey, sailed back to Aceh and met again with Hallidan and his family. So it was kind of closing that loop. But from that point on, we've never really gone back to a normal lifestyle.
So adventure's been...
Yeah, adventure's been, throughout the family DNA. But, I find a lot of people, especially women, will talk to Sarah and ask her how she tolerates our lifestyle. And she explains to them, listen, he does a big expedition about every 2 years.
Right.
He's home more now than he ever was when we were building a small veterinary practice as a sole practitioner, working 100-hour weeks, not seeing the kids. We worked out on that boat trip, I had 12 years of dad time that I caught up on.
Wow.
So it was an intense time as a dad, and I've never really gone back to that busyness of veterinary life.
Yeah.
And there are periods where I'm alone in the wilderness, but we're still very much in connection. Like the connection through Pivotal and the satellite network on this last journey was incredible. With the kids, with Sarah.
Yeah.
So it's a different type of isolation. It's not quite like the Mawson, Shackleton, Scott era. We are better connected, although you are solo. Being solo is incredibly mentally taxing. And physically, because everything falls to you. But I think we certainly would get criticised by certain people as being irresponsible or taking too high risk. What they don't see in the background is the incredible amount of effort spent on predicting every bad outcome and having a solution for it that you can get to very quickly.
And I think, that's, I followed your journey in Antarctica, and that's one of the things that struck me was that level of preparation. The different support people that you had to draw on. I think there was a lady in Finland or somewhere like that who was the wind specialist, and the satellite connection. So I guess, even though you were alone physically, there was some form of connection. And so, I know one of your passions is talking with groups of people about resilience. And I guess there's lots of layers to that. One of the things I'd love to hear from you is, I'm sure it was exhilarating, certain parts of that. And, if you could talk a little bit about those moments where you really felt that. But then those other moments, and, I was sharing with you before we started this they were the moments that really I connected into, following your journey
Yeah.
as a human. So, if you want to speak, around those highs and the lows of the
Yeah,
of the trip.
I'm probably, the lows are easy to remember because they sort of scare you the most. But there were probably 3 separate occasions where I felt physically unable to carry on. And I think another low point was when I realised I didn't have enough fuel
Right.
to safely get to the South Pole, back to Dome Argus, and I had to turn early for Dome Argus, which meant that my mileage was going to be significantly shorter. The achievements of the expedition potentially be cut short. But I remember at the time working out very down to the last milliliter what I thought I needed fuel-wise, because I'd lost over 4 litres of fuel from bottles vibrating open. That was a real low point, but also when I turned off that track towards the pole, realising every step I took towards Dome Argus, I became more and more unreachable. And
Right.
the Russians have been very clear to say that the region around Dome Argus was too high to get an aircraft to, and too cold to get a vehicle to. So it was possible there was about a 550 kilometre no retrieval area.
Wow.
And it was during that zone that I got to a point physically where I just couldn't carry on. And Sarah was well aware here that I was in that zone and mentally decompensating. So she did very well just to calm me, get me to sleep and just regenerate. And
So
then,
it was all of the stress was...
yeah, just mentally building up, and then also, feeling very isolated, alone in an area where nobody had ever ventured on foot. It was amazing to cross ice that had never had human foot on it before. And anyway.
And sorry, just for those people who don't know, that's the highest point?
Yeah, so it was a block. I was trying to do the longest crossing of Antarctica, and to do that journey I had to get over this thing called Dome Argus, which was the high point. The problem with it was that it was extremely cold, extremely high, very short on oxygen at the top. You're an equivalent altitude at the equator of about 17,000 feet.
Wow.
And you're working hard, so that really strains you. The snow was very powdery and dry up there, so it was bogging the sleds and making it very difficult to move them. But the high point there was we had a miracle wind that carried me in the end uphill all the way to the dome, which was just unheard of.
Wow.
Amazing. So yeah, on a high point, obviously you get this challenge, you get this incredible low, and then the human body has this incredible resilience, ability to bounce back and then press through. And a lot of thoughts and prayers from home. You could feel that protection, feel that support from our community back here, and that rallies you to carry on. Definitely a high point would have been getting to the top of Dome Argus, but then you've still got a 2,400 kilometre walk home. Mentally it's hard to get too excited when you've got 2,500 kilometres before you get out. And then, probably another real low point would have been day 56, within sight of the turn for home, a place called Thor's Hammer. I strayed into some really nasty crevassed ice.
Right.
And genuinely felt I wasn't going to get out of that crevasse field alive, and that was really stressful.
Right.
And then within that same day, I managed to get out of that and get to Thor's Hammer and realise I was 200 kilometres from the Russian base, which, and I just completed an out and back, the longest that's ever been done. At that point, I'd broken the record for the longest solo. And so you have these incredible lows and highs within hours of each other, and we touched on that earlier. That's life. We do. It's artificial to live on this plane with no challenge.
Yeah.
I think a big part of resilience is understanding that hardship is expected, hardship is normal, and it's good for you.
Well, and that's one of the things, in the work that I do is to talk with a lot of people have asked me when they start working, the ups and downs of life, can we flatten those out a bit? And I say to them, well, I know what that is, and that's depression.
Yeah.
If we flatten everything out, we're not feeling anything.
Yeah, exactly.
So in our normal life, that up and down is a well-lived life, full of experience.
Yeah, definitely.
And I know one, as I mentioned before, one of your passions is around talking about resilience to groups of people. What would you say are, keys for people who are struggling or might be struggling with, their business, their life, in some way, shape, or form at the moment? What would you?
Yeah, I mean, a couple of really key ones for me in terms of resilience development. If we look at each one of us has what we call our window of tolerance, which is that portion of your life where you feel in control, you're not stressed, you've done this before, you handle it. You're the master of your own destiny. The skills that have been drawn on are ones that you're confident in and you feel comfortable in there. To stay in that zone is comfortable, but it's dangerous because eventually you will drift into apathy and depression. You have to have something that draws you out of that and stretches you and develops skill set. And without vision, you won't ever leave that window of tolerance. Like, without a dream, you're not going to need to stretch yourself. And I think one of the greatest creators of a resilient mindset is having a vision to hang on to. And it's almost like the grappling hook that you can throw out of your window of tolerance and hook into is that dream or vision. If I speak to most Australians, 3 out of 4 will not be enjoying what they're doing day to day. The majority of our time is spent at work. 3 out of 4 are not liking it. And I'm not advocating that men just suddenly jump into something, but I do think if you're not enjoying what you're doing, you're in your window of tolerance, it's too easy, it's not your passionate project. You need to build a dream and see yourself over there, get a grappling hook onto it and start dragging yourself out of your window of tolerance. Building skill sets that mean that you can stretch this eventually to encompass your dream. So I think the number one key for a resilient mindset is having vision. If you don't have vision, whether you call it a dream or a vision or a faith eye image, it's the same thing. You have to have something that you're stretching for. So for me, when I come back off expedition, there's this dangerous, what I call post-expedition blue, which you've had this incredible high. You've worked, this last journey I worked for 7 years on. So to get to the end point, have ticked every single goal, got home with all my fingers and toes intact. You can get into this very dangerous post-expedition blue. And I think for anyone who's in business or in family or whatever they've done, they've achieved great things. The family's left home and you've got this silence in the house, or your business has got to a point where it runs easily, your job's easy, then you need to create the next dream. Start building that. And that's where any challenge that comes your way, you become a dam buster because you can see this dream, you're working towards it. It's going to give you the ability to push through those times of incredible toughness. So,
and I think it's that's super important right now, given what we've just come through as a globe. Really,
yeah,
it can put people into that fear space where it literally becomes about survival. So I think it is super important message to let's start dreaming. What is it that we want to create, as individuals, as countries, as businesses, whatever, and start that dreaming.
Absolutely, and we're from a pioneering past, but I do find that in a lot of our teaching, even the way that we're set up with insurances, everything's about playing a straight bat, and you're not ever going to hit a 6 playing a straight bat. You've got to have a swing, and the fear of failure is something I think needs to be got rid of as well. We're all terrified of failure. One thing you will do, if you get out of bed and put your boots on in the morning, there will be a project or something that you're having a crack at where you will fail, but at least you've got your boots on and you're in the pit. I love that quote, I can't remember about the critic, the guy in the arena with the mud and blood, sweat and tears on his face. He's the guy that even if he fails, at least he's having a crack. And I think the other part of a resilient mindset is parking that notion that failure is a bad thing. For me, at the start of every expedition, I know that there's a significant chance I'll make a fool of myself. 3 days into my first Antarctic journey, I'm strapped to a bright pink set of boobs that we've made from Sarah's breasts. I look like a comedy act. I've got no polar pedigree. No one's heard of Geoff Wilson. The biggest storm to hit Antarctica in 50 years hits the coast, and I look like I'm going to die on day 3 of this expedition, connected to a bright pink comedy act set of tits. And that would have been the most embarrassing failure, you know, but it was significant. I was very close to losing my life in that storm. You push through that and pop out into sunshine on the other side, and it generates an incredible amount of resilience. But if I had feared failure, I never would have set foot on that ice. So whatever your Antarctica is, you have to park the notion of failure as a bad thing. I always say I never fail. I either learn or I win. You know, if you have that notion that a failure is not something bad, it's something where you're learning, you're honing your skill, and you're developing resilience. I think if you grabbed on today to 3 really simple things: 1, hardship is not bad for you. It's actually where you build character. A process called hormesis is built into every single cell in your body. Hormesis is where if I rub this finger with rock when I'm climbing daily for 10 minutes, the cells will get a message from the brain or wherever it comes from to thicken and harden and get stronger, because he's going to do something silly and rub you with rock again tomorrow. That process of hormesis forms a thick callus that I can climb on and climb further. Every single cell in your body, including your brain, is designed to do that. So little amounts of stress back into comfort. Little amount of stress back into comfort. Whether it's putting your fist into a bucket of ice water once a day, some sort of hardship or physical discomfort is necessary for you to kick in this process of hormesis and develop resilience. If you, number 2, get rid of the fear of failure, chuck that out, you either learn or you win. That's so powerful.
And I think, you know, there's 2 aspects to that fear of failure, and often the hardest one to overcome is our own inner voices.
Yeah.
Because there will always be people externally that will doubt us. But the inner voices are the hardest ones.
Absolutely. And, you know, the inner critic is so dangerous. I know that in my discussions with guys and girls that operate at the very extreme end of human endurance, none of them have a strong inner critic. You cannot, the amount of calories that inner critic will drain from you will mean that you can never perform at your best. You can never perform at that really, the absolute edge of human endurance. So for me to operate at the edge of human endurance for 58 days solo, you have to harness that inner critic and have him there as a warning, as an instinct, but get him from a negative effect into a positive effect, because you're listening to him or her as an instinct, but not as a suppressor of forward movement. And then, you know, the last thing to leave you with today is that without vision, man is lost, you know, woman is lost. So you, even in this tough time, if your only vision is to get through COVID alive and well, then that's still a vision. You know, hang on to that and do everything you have to thrive and prosper and get your family through this crisis. But I'd encourage you to dream bigger than that, to work out what your Antarctica is, what your why is. And if you're doing a job that just doesn't excite you when you put your boots on in the morning, start working to get out of that, get away from that. Life is too short for you to be doing something that you hate doing.
Absolutely. And I think that's such an important message. You know, everything that's ever been created started with a vision.
Yeah.
And,
Absolutely.
you know, you I'm sure, sat here one day thinking, I wonder how it would be going across Antarctica and back. That would start with a thought.
And that vision changes, because the original vision was to do a straight line crossing across Antarctica. We had 7 years of blockade from the Australian permission process, getting across the second half of the journey. We're down in Hobart with a map out with the filmmaker Jason Markland, and we're drowning our sorrows in a pub there, and we look at the map and Jason says, listen, what if you crossed Dome Argus and came back to your start point? I remember looking at him thinking he was mad. There's no way any human can cross Dome Argus. But then you start to dream and go, well, maybe it can be done. And, you know, it's just that little question, can it be done? Is it possible?
How can we do it, rather than it's too hard?
It's too hard. So But you know, it's the vision that gets you out of bed with excitement. And I know for me to get through that post-expedition blues, the journey's not over until the film's done, the story's told. We've inspired people to move and get off the sofa and dream through that. But then I'm already building the next vision, you know, the next dream.
And just so everyone can keep an eye out for it, what's the name of the film going to be?
It'll be Icemen,
Icemen.
200 years of polar exploration.
And that's literally being made as we speak.
Yeah, we're meant to deliver to Curiosity Channel in the next 6 weeks. So there's no Australian rights sold at the moment, so we'll probably have a big movie night on the farm or something, so we'll let you know.
Yeah, awesome. And just to finish up, Geoff, you know, the question I ask everyone at the end is, you sitting here now, you know, at this point in your life, what would there be anything, any advice that you would give to yourself when you were, say, 14 or 15?
Yeah, I think, I've just had this pivotal moment going from 49 to 50, and Sarah asked me, you know, how does it feel? And I said, honestly, I think if I died tomorrow, I feel like I've been the best father I could be, the best husband I could be, the best friend I could be. I'm sure I could have been better, but you know, within the realms of the skills I had available, the emotional intelligence I had, I was as firm and fair and present mentally as I could be, and that to me would be enough. Like if I left the planet tomorrow, I could do it with good conscience. And I think if I spoke to my 14, 15-year-old self, I would say, listen, you made absolutely perfect. God put you together in the way that you're meant to be.
Yeah.
And don't sweat the small stuff. You know, he would not have created you with any defect or flaw. You're perfectly and wonderfully made. And I think especially for women understanding now that they are made perfect, despite what the media is telling them that they need to be, all of the, you know, the beauty stuff, all of that, you know, rake thin stuff, understanding that their voice is exactly what it's meant to be and the way they are made is exactly the way they're meant to be. But I think for men as well, we're starting to understand this more and talk about it more. I'm really proud of the Aussie male for slowing down. We're talking more, we're open about mental health now.
Yeah.
I think it's a really exciting time, but you know, to remind ourselves at 14 or 15 that you are perfect and everything's going to work out is super powerful.
Yeah, I think that's an excellent message to finish it on for the 14, 15-year-old or the 50-year-old.
Yeah.
You know, you are perfect. Get out there, have a crack, create a vision, and let go of that story inside your head that's telling you that you can't.
Yeah, definitely. And I think the final thing I've probably shown in my life is that you have way more in you than you believe you do. You know, and you don't find that out playing a straight bat. So get out there and hit some sixes.
Awesome. So thank you so much, Geoff. I know your time is super, you know, valuable, and I really appreciate you spending some time with us.
Thanks, Andrew.
Thank you. And thank you guys for tuning in. So we'll see you again next time. Thank you.
Fantastic.
See you guys.